really am surprised not to see anybody try and get information out of their opponent when there's a big decision to make.
Well, not a surprise in terms of we have many online players that don't do it as often.
But it's just it's such a big tool. They should try and implement it a little bit when the opportunity is there.
But if you're uncomfortable talking,
get comfortable. You had 3 months. Why don't you start talking to everybody? If you're in the elevator, talk to the people.
Well, I think most of these guys were not coached by Jerry Springer, so they didn't get comfortable in what you want them to do.
Blind on blind action. Ruan is best with his king high. And a bet from Bello and a fold from Ruan. That was going to be anybody's pie, whoever decided they wanted to put chips in the middle.
I never thought I would see a final table at the World Series of Poker main event where they're playing so fast. I mean, I am so happy to be here watching this. This sets a great example.
Amen again.
Slow wizards out there.
And interestingly, it's the poker tournament director, recreational player, who's playing the slowest.
Actually, it's the most deliberate we've seen Kenny Hall during the main event, and he definitely is playing slower than the others, but nothing absurd. He's just being more deliberate.
I could never tell you what it actually meant. Yeah. How do you know what they actually meant? That's half the time I have no idea.
So now Ruzicka has lost the chip lead. He has to play slightly more careful because the 2 chips leaders are right on his left. And so we won't see him play as aggressive as we had expected when he was the chip leader.
Ruan raises from the button. Bello got out of the way in the small blind. Hollard in the big with 10-7. And you're always suspicious. Am I getting pushed around? And you have to take a stand here and there and see a flop. Hollard open-ended. He checks. No hearts for Ruan in that flop. Free turn card.
Hollard loves a free turn card with a straight draw here. Well, what Hollard doesn't want to do is check call here, right? His opponent showed some weakness on the flop, and so if I'm sitting in his shoes, I'd probably take a stab at it here. And if I get called, I always have 8 outs to make a straight.
What time is it?
Hollard's bet will take it. Ruan does fold. Every time somebody wins a pot, you hear their crowd on their feet. The rail, as Antonio mentioned, is very important. Let's go down to Kara Scott. She's talking about Michael Rand's rail, who have come a long way.
Like 2 days before the tournament, and they put a new battery in.
Some tough poker pros on his rail. He also has a former world champion on his virtual rail as well. 2012 main event champion Greg Merson is in Hoboken, New Jersey, watching the coverage. And Michael said that he was going to be sending in some thoughts and reads on the players to the guys here on the rail by text. Now, Michael said it was great having Greg to talk to, just to know what to expect out of this whole experience. And the best advice he could give him was to eat well, be well rested, and be as prepared as possible. In Michael's own words, who better to have helping you out than a former main event champion himself?
A lot of players would like to emulate Greg Merson and how he handled the whole World Championship thing. He's a good guy to have in your corner.
Well, sure, and his advice to Michael was right, and Michael actually did try to change his diet a bit over the last couple of months. He's still heavy on the bologna and cheese and chicken fingers, but he figured he wanted to be a little healthier. He wanted to be a little more rested, well rested, and it works.
Kenny Hollard as well, who lost a lot of weight this year.
He actually lost 40 pounds, I think, in the last year, and I think he switched from the Michael Ruan diet to a healthy diet.
Oh, but those salamis and bolognas over in Europe are so good. Jack 5 against 10-5. 7-6 deuce. The blind on
With
blind.
all around. Who is going to show us their hearts?
Pollard in the small blind, first to act here on that non-flop flop.
First aggressor should probably take it in the spot.
So this does seem to be this year at the whole main event, Antonio, including here more ABC poker than 10 years ago when no one would give up a pot and you'd see the 2-bet and then the 3-bet with nothing, and that they seem to be out of control. It seems like it's been less of that in the last year or two.
Yeah, I would agree, especially this year, but I think the stack sizes have a lot to do with it. And given the pay jumps are substantial, starting, around the 4th place finishes. So, it's really interesting that every player has a reasonable chance. Even if Hollard, who's the short stack, gets a double up, he's right up there amongst the chip leaders. So I suspect we'll see a little bit of slower play. Nobody wants to bust 6th or 5th.
Ruan with king queen offsuit. They raised to $1.8 million. Suddenly things are drying up for Ruzicka, but everyone seems to have worked their way through dry spells here, and that's going to happen. Win with ace king of diamonds. Top tiered hand, suited ace king, and there is the 3-bet.
What is that?
That's the face from Michael Ruan we know from the main event.
Crinkly face.
He said his eyesight is not good. That's why he has to squint to try to take a look and count out the re-raise. He's facing from Qui Win, who made it $5.8 million.
So it's really important to note that at this point, Ruan almost certainly knows that Win did this with the Queen-6 offsuit just a couple of rounds ago. And so he knows that he's capable of making such a play. King-Queen is a pretty strong hand, 6-handed. And so given that he has position on Win, I think for sure we'll see a call here in position. Out of position, I think he's much more likely to fold.
It was against Michael Ruan that Qui Win had a lucky river card to stay alive in the main event, and they both remained alive to come here 6-handed. It's championship table. With Josephy getting a close-up look at what's going through both these players' minds, trying to get a read on both of them for future action. There's a call.
Well, if the flop comes with a king high, it's going to be big trouble for Ruan.
Ace king suited against king queen. There's an ace, 2 hearts in there. Win with top pair, top kicker, and a Broadway draw for Ruan.
That is such a good feeling when there's so much money in the pot. You have ace king and you see an ace or a king. It is such a relief. So given that Win is going to be betting all of his bluffs, he should also be betting his good hands. And so without a doubt, he should lead here with ace king.
Win took control pre-flop with the 3-bet.
I'm going to go on a limb and say bet fold.
Haven't heard that from you.
Any takers?
I know who you're talking to. $7.7 million.
That will be the end of that. Now, if I had a lot more chips, I would consider floating here, just because a jack gives me the nuts, a heart gives me the nut flush draw, and also if my opponent is bluffing, it's extremely difficult for him to continue on the turn. Really, the only hand he can continue with, if I call him here on the flop, is ace king or aces. Even if he has a hand like queens or jacks or kings, I could probably take it away on the turn. But Ruan just doesn't have enough chips to make that play.
Ruan starting the hand with just $34.5 million. See the chips he has behind. He would need a quarter of those chips to make this call.
And Wynn's bet looks kind of weak. Well, it's about half the pot, so it's not so bad. But I just don't see any version of Ruan actually calling here. I think this is Hollywood.
I don't think he Hollywoods much, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, again, if I have a lot of chips, if I had 50, 60 million, I would definitely consider it. Probably closer to 60.
We've been giving Michael Ruan a lot of credit for sussing out exactly where he stands in a hand post-flop. More often than not, making the correct decision.
Oh, wow.
More often than not.
That fold is not your prognostication
Not
specialty.
so much.
And that's a bad step, probably, for Michael Ruan.
I'm really surprised to see that.
Makes that call. 28 million in the middle, and he is the one in need. A 4-to-1 underdog and a blank 6 of clubs on the turn.
Well, that changes everything. Wow, so if I think there's any possibility that my opponent has a hand like he has, I'm obviously going to check and let him hang himself. But I think that Wynn is just going to fire out and win the pot on the turn here. But if he checks, I think Ruan has to bet every single time. But Wynn doesn't come across as the kind of guy that's going to check here. I think he's just going to bet it and try and take what's out there, not risk a free card.
And you're looking at what, 15 million or so?
Yeah,
Or maybe
I mean, given my opponent, only has 20 million, I'd probably bet 8.5 million just to give him a chance to think maybe he can get me off ace king if he shoves. I wouldn't bet much more than that. If he wants to pay 8.5 million to draw to whatever he's drawing at, more power to him.
He's got a lot more than 8 million in his hand, but certainly not in the pot yet. Yeah. Okay, now they are.
Now we're going to see a fold.
Yeah, and Ruan should be folding before they count this out. 17-7.
Yeah, I don't like the size of this bet at all. It doesn't give my opponent a chance to think that maybe he can get me off the hand. Whereas if I made another weak bet of 8.5 million, maybe there's just that small percentage chance that he moved on.
Well, Ruan laid it down one street too late, and that one hurt. Michael Ruan is the short stack at this table now with just under 21 million. Qui Wynn over 91 million. Ruan had a draw, he took a shot, and he comes up empty. And now he is the one on the bottom looking up. Qui Wynn back in control. 91.5 million for him. Josephy in second with just 67 million. We are still six-handed at the Rio. Come back for more World Championship action. World Series of Poker 2016 World Championship bracelet. It gets bigger and bigger every year, and these players would welcome that and $8 million for first place. The blinds have been raised to 500,000 small blind, 1 million for the big blind, and 150,000 per ante. And that is going to put a pinch on everyone, but certainly this man, Kenny Hollart, and Michael Ruan, the two short stacks. Hollart with a suited king deuce. He's seen folds from Ruan and Veo.
And that's a pretty significant jump. It's 2.4 million chips every 6 hands.
Josephy. Diamonds. Dominating Hollard. He's in the pot with ace-6. There's a call. Josephy from the big blind. Ace-6 against king deuce. There is a king for Kenny Hollard. Top pair. Josephy checks his ace-6.
Man, I wish I could flop king 7-4 when I raise with king deuce. How come that stuff doesn't work out for me, Norman?
Is he complaining again, Norman?
Just amazing.
I just wanted to get a reaction.
I'd hold an intervention, but I don't want to spend that much time with him.
I know I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I just want a reaction.
Where's your Persian carpet hand right now, huh?
That would be pretty good. So if Josephy checks again here on the turn, Hollard will definitely go for value, knowing his top pair is the best hand.
Melanie Weisner in the background. Finished 127th in this year's main event. Quite a nice run. Friend of Kenny.
Check, bet, fold. You watch, Norman.
You know how you can't sometimes get a song out of your head? I'll have check, bet, fold in my head walking around for the next 90 days.
Hollard with the bet top pair. And gets a fold from Flip Josephy. We talked to Melanie Weisner a little bit earlier about Kenny Hollard. He is a world-class player, and she recognizes that fully.
Kenny Hollard. So I have known Kenny for a really long time, probably since the very beginning of my poker career. Played with him in all the EPTs. Very intimidating demeanor, very calculated with his decisions, and just all-around talented, sound. He knows what's up, as we say.
So on his shoulder, Melanie Weisner keeping a close eye on the second short stack. Kenny with almost 36 million now. Ruan the short stack with almost 21 million.
I have plenty of stuff. Thanks. Have an empty
Directors
bottle
take
on the
care of each
table.
other.
They do indeed. And they take care of the poker players too, and we thank them for that. All the staff, all the dealers have been wonderful throughout the main event.
Yariam, PCA 2015.
Ruzicka in second place now. He and Josephy pretty much a dead heat.
Let him tell a bit about that story.
But Ruzicka with a slight advantage on Josephy, and with 7-5 of diamonds, he raises it up 2,325,000. Ruan in the big blind.
Imagine he won the bet, I think.
Did he win it?
He had to lunch like a whole day or something.
Ruan in the big blind with the ace-8. And he's not going anywhere. Pair of fives for Ruzicka. Ruan missed, and he goes check, check. Deuce of hearts on the turn. Ruzicka's still good.
Ruzicka likes his hand. He flopped a pair. He has a straight draw. He has position. He's against the short stack, and anytime you're playing against the short stack at the final table, it's a great feeling because you just have so much control.
An ace for Ruan to steal it away.
Most probably we'll see a check And there's no point in betting for Ruzicka, so Ruan will win this pot.
Shows the ace, and Michael Ruan trying to climb away from his short stack. Gets chips from Ruzicka, and Ruan has a very active rail here, including his sister May Reed, 20-year-old from Hoboken. And he does have a formula for success. Whatever he's doing on the shore there in New Jersey is working well for him.
After Black Friday, we had to go away to play online. He went to Malta, and he loved it. He went to Costa Rica, he loved it. He went to Montreal, he loved it. But he couldn't wait to get back to New Jersey.
Michael Ruan. Hoboken, we talked, you quizzed me earlier. What's famous in Hoboken? I mentioned Frank Sinatra, but you went right for the big one. That's where Major League, or for baseball, was invented, right?
First baseball game, which is still probably being played right now. The pace of that game is so slow.
Pollard under the gun. Open raises to 2.3 million. Again, the blind's up to $500,000 and $1 million for the big blind. So this is a min raise plus some, and pocket aces for the chip leader. This could be a problem for Kenny Hollard.
Raise. Make it $5,700,000.
Yeah, Kenny's had so many hands tonight with big cards in which he was dominated or beaten pre-flop.
This could get pretty ugly for Hollard here. He knows that Wynn has done this with Queen 6, as we just discussed. He has ace queen suited. It's six-handed.
Pocket tens for Gordon Vail.
Wow.
Vail scored a knockout of Griffin Benger holding pocket tens.
I can just feel the hurt somewhere here.
Yeah, they're gonna spread the pain around this whole table.
The problem is Vail has a really good stack, and
Nice fold.
if he puts a lot of chips in the pot and loses, he's going to fall drastically on the chip counts. So good laydown. That's a tough one. I don't know. I might have 4-bet there to find out.
That was a big laydown.
I might have made it 12 million just to see where I'm at, and if I get re-raised, I fold. But you know, and Hollard is in a tough spot here. I probably call with his hand, given that I have 35 big blinds to start the hand. I don't want to get in 35 bigs with ace queen suited, even when it's six-handed. Especially since there's somebody with a shorter stack, and the pay jump is 470K difference between 5th and 6th. So I am much more likely to call here and see a flop. Now, if I had less chips, if I had maybe 22 million, 23 million, 24 million, I'm happy to get it in.
All in from Hollard. Oh my goodness. And a snap call from Qui Win with the aces, and it's Kenny Hollard at risk suddenly with almost 36 million chips of his in the middle.
And you saw the dismay and disgust in Kenny Hollard's face after he sees this tabled.
He had been so solid. He dropped down to the short stack. He fought his way back, and now his rail, including Melanie Weisner, sees his ace queen in serious, serious trouble. Kenny Hollard looking for a Gordon Vail-like miracle here.
And with a clean board, Qui Win, our chip leader, is going to have a massive amount of chips. Kenny Hollard needs a lot of help to stick around.
Qui Win on the verge of sitting with a stack of over 126,000. And here is the flop. And there's a queen for Kenny. That's just part of the equation. No clubs in that flop. You see the outs for Hollard at the top of your screen.
It's happening. Nothing. You want to get you know.
Hollard, the only one at this table perhaps his final moments at this championship table, sees the 7 of diamonds. So now it comes down to the river. Quy Nguyen feeling very good about his hopes and chances. Nguyen's rail calling for a black card because both black queens are already taken.
Melanie Weisner watches. Kenny Hollart knows his main event has come tumbling down. He has to have a queen.
And the river card, the 4 of hearts, and that will do it. Aces up for Quy Nguyen. He scores a massive knockout, collecting the final 35+ million chips of Kenny Hollart, who is our 6th place finisher. What a run for Quy Nguyen on this opening night of the championship table.
Quy Nguyen now with a 2-to-1 chip lead over the second biggest chip stack, Cliff Josephy, and nearly 40% of the chips in play.
It's crazy how fast fortunes can change at the final table. 1 second he was the chip leader, then he lost it, and now all of a sudden he's 2-to-1 on the chip leader on the second chips.
Kenny Hollart, the poker tournament director from Belgium, wins over $1.4 million for his 6th place finish here in Las Vegas. But Quy Nguyen is the man of the hour. He started as the 2nd biggest chip stack. He made a statement in the first hand, overtaking Cliff Josephy for the chip lead. And then it was solid poker the rest of the way. And then he managed to get a 35 million chip stack to shove all in on his pocket aces here. What a night for that man right there. The Las Vegas resident, the Vietnamese citizen, is the top dog right now.
Kenny, let's talk about the move with the ace-queen. What were the considerations that go into that there? Is it player dependent? Is it the situation, the spot?
I had a couple of reasons to make the move. I thought I was good there. Apparently not. So yeah, it was one of those days where I'm happy about my game, but nothing really went my way today. So that's poker, you know, these things can happen. So.
It did look quite frustrating. When we talked before the game started, you said that it hadn't really sunk in, the enormity of being here at the final table. So how long do you think that's going to take to really sink in and understand what you've done?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just still after the moment now. So I do realize what sort of achievement that I made, and I'm happy that I was here. I started in 4th in the chips, so I always hope at least to, let's say, make it to the top 4. It would already be good. Unfortunately, I'm out in 6th now, but I really enjoyed this whole experience, and next year I'm going to give it a shot again.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking to us. Kenny Hollart out in 6th.
Antonio, it was a very exciting night of poker from the get-go, wasn't it?
Fantastic. I really appreciated the fast play. There was some great action. Nguyen showed a lot of heart. Everybody played good. It was just great to watch. It was good poker.
And the wild man, not such a wild card.
No, we expect him to be a wild card, but he played good poker. He had big hands. He's got a big chip lead.
So Quy Nguyen with over 128 million is our leader. 9 players waited 4 months for a once-in-a-lifetime